Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And the chapter is entitled Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness. Sechagyam Chapi Mam Vidhi Sechagyam Chapi Mam Vidhi Sarva Sechveshu Bharata Sarva Sechveshu Bharata Secha Krishna Gyanyor Gyanam Secha Krishna Gyanyor Gyanam Yad Taj Gyanam Matam Mama Yad Taj Gyanam Matam Mama. Okay, word for word. Sechagyam, the knower of the field. Cha, also. Api, certainly. Mam, me. Vidhi, no. Sarva, all. Setveshu, in bodily fields. Bharata, O son of Bharata. Setra, the field of activities, the body. Setra Gyayo, and the knower of the field. Gyanam, knowledge of. Yat, that which. Tat, that. Gyanam, knowledge. Matam, opinion. Mama, my. Translation and purports by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada. O sign of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies. And to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion. Please repeat. O sign of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies. And to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion. While discussing the subject of the body and the knower of the body, the soul and the supersoul, we shall find three different topics of study: the Lord, the living entity, and matter. In every field of activities, in every body, there are two souls, the individual soul and the supersoul. Because the supersoul is the plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, Krishna says, I am also the knower, but I'm not the individual knower. I'm not the individual knower of the body. I am the super knower. I am present in every body as the Paramatma, or super soul. One who studies the subject matter of the field of activity and the knower of the field very minutely in terms of this Bhagavad-Gita can attain to knowledge. The Lord says, I am the knower of the field of activities in every individual body. The individual may be the knower of his own body, but he is not in knowledge of other bodies. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is present as the Super Soul in all bodies, knows everything about all bodies. He knows all the different bodies of all the various species of life. A citizen may know everything about his patch of land, but the king knows not only his palace, but all the properties possessed by the individual citizens. Similarly, one may be the proprietor of the body individually, but the Supreme Lord is the proprietor of all bodies. The king is the original proprietor of the kingdom, and the citizen is the secondary proprietor. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is the supreme proprietor of all bodies. The body consists of the senses. The Supreme Lord is Hrishikesh, which means a controller of the senses. He is the original controller of the senses, just as the king is the original controller of all the activities of the state. The citizens are secondary controllers. The Lord says, I am also the knower. This means that he is the super knower. The individual soul knows only his particular body. In the Vedic literature, it is stated as follows: Sechani hi sarirani bijam chapi subha sube tani veti sayogatma tata secha gya ujate. This body is called the Secha, and within it dwells the owner of the body and the Supreme Lord, who knows both the body and the owner of the body. Therefore, he is called the knower of all fields. The distinction between the field of activities, the knower of activities, and the supreme knower of activities is described as follows. Perfect knowledge of the constitution of the body, the constitution of the individual soul, and the constitution of the super soul is known in terms of Vedic literature as Gyan. That is the opinion of Krishna. To understand both the soul and the super soul as one yet distinct is knowledge. One who does not understand the field of activity and the knower of activity is not in perfect knowledge. One has to understand the position of Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer of nature, and Ishvara, the knower who dominates or controls nature, and the individual soul. One should not confuse the three in their different capacities. This material world, which is the field of activities, is nature, and the enjoyer of nature is the living entity. And above them both is the supreme controller, the personality of Godhead. It is stated in the Vedic language in the Svetashvatara Upanishad 112, Bhokta Bhokyam Paritaram Cha Matva Sarvam Proktam Tri Vidham Brahmam Itat. There are three Brahman conceptions. Prakriti is Brahman as the field of activities, and the Jiva, individual soul, is also Brahman and is trying to control material nature. And the controller of both of them is also Brahman, but he is the factual controller. In this chapter, it will also be explained that out of the two knowers, one is fallible and the other is infallible. One is superior and the other is subordinate. One who understands the two knowers of the field to be one and the same contradicts the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who states here very clearly, I am also the knower of the field of activity. One who misunderstands a rope to be a serpent is not in knowledge. There are different kinds of bodies, and there are different owners of the bodies. Because each individual soul has his individual capacity for lording it over material nature, there are different bodies. But the Supreme also is present in them as the controller. The word Cha is significant, for it indicates the total number of bodies. That is the opinion of Srila Bhagavad Vidyabhushan. Krishna is the super soul present in each and every body, apart from the individual soul. And Krishna explicitly says here that real knowledge is to know that the super soul is the controller of both the field of activities and the finite enjoyer. So that's a very long purport. And it's the kind of purport where you could talk about it for about a week at least. There's so much information in here. So I'll try to share. I don't have much realization about the self and the super soul, so I'll just share what I've been reading about and studying since I was told I was given the class. So in this purport, it's being made clear, who's the controller and who's not the controller, in case we're confused about it, because all the living entities are very confused about who's controlling whom, and thinking that the body is material. So, some of the points here is in every field of activity, in everybody, there are two souls, the individual soul and the super soul. So I think we've heard, all of us have heard about the analogy of two birds sitting in a tree. And one is the witness, one is the enjoyer who's enjoying all the fruits of the tree, because that's described throughout the Bhagavad-Gita. And the super soul, Krishna, who's waiting for the jiva soul to turn towards him, to recognize him as his well-wisher and as his best friend. So in chapter 2, in fact, there's so many references to this about the two birds sitting in the tree, and about being a witness. The witness is the super soul. So in chapters 8, 4, 13, 23, 16, verse 11, and 1861 are some references, if you want some references for where that all these things are described. And I'll just read some of 2, verse 22. So in that purport, this one is the one where it says, as a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. And down in the second paragraph is where the description is about the birds. The Vedas, like the Mundaka Upanishad, as well as the Svetasvatara Upanishad, compare the soul and the super soul to two friendly birds sitting on the same tree. One of the birds, the individual atomic soul, and atomic means very, very small, very finite. And that's mentioned at the end of this purport about the individual soul being finite, the finite enjoyer. So one of the birds is eating the fruit of the tree, and the other bird, Krishna, is simply watching his friend. Of these two birds, although they are the same in quality, one is captivated by the fruits of the material tree, while the other is simply witnessing the activities of his friend. Krishna is the witnessing bird, and Arjuna is the eating bird. Although they are friends, one is still the master and the other is the servant. Forgetfulness of this relationship of the atomic soul is the cause of one's changing his position from one tree to another, or from one body to another. So whatever we do, whatever we're thinking, whatever, whatever our desires are, Krishna is there. Actually, I was thinking how Krishna comes with us. He comes in every single living entity, plants, birds, aquatics. He comes in every living entity and accompanies them as their dear friend. And we don't recognize him. We've turned our back. But then, because we're parts and parcels of Krishna, we could never really, forget him unless we just turn our backs, because we're part of him. He's with us all the time. We're part and parcels. So we're forgetful because of being contaminated by the material nature. But we're all parts and parcels of Krishna. And then Krishna says, I'm the super knower, present in everybody. And in the third paragraph, he says, I'm the knower of the field of activities in every individual body. So, and knowledge is this, to know the difference between the two, who's master and who's subordinate. So we only know our body. And actually I was thinking about how Krishna knows everything, but we know very little. We can't even control, we have no control over our bodies at all. When we get tired or when we get sleepy, we have to lay down, whether we fight it or not, because we're not in control of it. We're not in control of our seeing ability. If we were, we would be able to see at night as well as in the day, but we can't see at night. Also, even in relationships, sometimes it's, you can't understand what someone else is thinking. You have to try to work through it or talk about it, and still you don't know. You have misunderstandings about, like why is the person doing this, or what are they trying to say? We don't really understand. And there's a saying in America, when you say, believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see, because what you think you're seeing or hearing mostly is probably wrong, unless you talk to the person, and even then you might not understand. So in the introduction on page 10, Prabhupada is saying, it's the same thing. He's saying the living being is conscious of his particular body, whereas the Lord is conscious of all bodies. Because he lives in the heart of every living being, he is conscious of the psychic movements of the particular jivas. And Prabhupada says we should not forget this, that he's following everything we're thinking, no matter what. We can't hide everything we're thinking, good or bad or in between. He knows everything, okay? That's what it says here in the introduction on page 10. And another point I'd like to talk about is, one may be the proprietor of the body individually, but the Supreme Lord is the proprietor of all the bodies. So in Srimad Bhagavatam class, we're reading about Bali Maharaj. We've been reading about him for some time now. And we know that Vamana came and asked Bali for 3 steps of land. And what happened was that Bali thought he was amused that you're only asking for 3 steps of land. I have so much that I own, that I can give you. I own all the 3 worlds, so why are you only asking for 3 steps of land? He thought it was, like funny. Why are you only asking? Is that all you want? So then Vamana explained to him about, not being greedy and just taking whatever you need, just the necessities. But then he tricked Bali and took everything. But Bali was thinking, I'm the proprietor. I own all of this. And then after he couldn't fulfill the promise of, like giving the land, and Vamana said, okay, where should I put this last step? Where should I put it? And then Bali said, put it on my head. He was offering his body. But his body belonged to Krishna. So he wasn't really giving Krishna anything. No, it all belonged to Krishna anyway. And so Vamana was just giving a lesson to his devotee, about how he is the proprietor of everything. He's the knower, he's the proprietor, he's the owner. And we should just offer some of it at least back to the Father. Make some kind of offering. My Guru Maharaj used to say, Krishna knows, he sees what we're giving, but he also sees what we're holding in the back, what we don't want to give, that we're not fully giving everything that we can give. So he's also knowing that, what we don't want to give. Said, well, how the children play a game and they say, one for you, one for me. One for you, two for me. Like the kids tend to do like that, And then, so this is like we do with Krishna. Like I want this. Actually, I was a couple of days ago, I was thinking about that I had bought some ice cream and I was like offering it, but I was doing it quickly because I was like, oh, I want to enjoy, but I was thinking, no, Krishna is the enjoyer. Sometimes that consciousness, Krishna in the heart tells you, like, what are you doing? Like, I'm the enjoyer. You're not the enjoyer. I'm the enjoyer of everything. I'm the enjoyer. So just, offer it in the mood of love and devotion. Then you can take, And then this also about how can we have the realization that of ourself, our real self, and it started me thinking about if you, for instance, your Pujari, it's my service, Pujari service. So before we go on the altar, we offer all these prayers. We prepare ourselves to have that close association with the deity, because the deity that we're serving is there for the whole community. So the Pujari who is serving has to be in the right consciousness. So you offer so many prayers, you set up the seat for the spiritual master, you say so many prayers before you go on to serve, bathe, and dress the deities. And when you go on the altar and you are with Krishna in his deity form, you somehow have a little understanding of yourself outside of the body, because you may be sick, you may have a cold, you may be aching somewhere, or you may have any kind of a mental problem. But when you're in proximity with the Lord and you have to touch his body and you have to dress him and you have to bathe him, your consciousness is elevated and you don't think about being in the body at all. You're in another, somewhere with Krishna somehow, so you've forgotten about the body. The only time you remember is when you get off the altar, and then you're saying, oh yeah, my feet hurt or my knee is swollen or whatever. But when you're with Krishna, it's not there. It's somehow, it's gone. So that's, to me, is some indication of the self, the real self, the soul, the jiva soul, serving the deity. Then down further, he says the body consists of senses, and the Supreme Lord is Hrishikesh, which means the control of the senses, the original control of the senses. He's not directed by the dictation of his senses as we are, due to our desires to play with material nature. So in that way, we're using our senses in the wrong way. So I wanted to read something from Canto 1. And the one that is really nice to read from about the super soul, there's two of them. One is called Divinity and Divine Service. And that's Canto 2, Chapter 2. And the next one that's really nice to read is called The Lord in the Heart. I'm forgetting which canto that is. What's it? Is it the next chapter? The Lord in the Heart. Yes, the Lord in the Heart. They're very beautiful, and they really go into a lot of descriptions about the Lord in the Heart, the Super Soul. To text 23, 33. Oh. So I'll just read a little bit of it. This is text 32, 31 and 32. After creating the material substance, the Lord, Vasudeva, expands himself and enters into it. And although he is within the material modes of nature and appears to be one of the created beings, he is always fully enlightened in his transcendental position. And just a little of the purport. It says the living entities are separated parts and parcels of the Lord, and the conditioned living entities who are unfit for the spiritual kingdom are strewn within the material world to enjoy matter to the fullest. As Paramatma, an eternal friend of the living entities, the Lord, by one of his plenary portions, accompanies the living entities to guide them in their material enjoyment and to become witness to all activities. 32 is, the Lord as Super Soul pervades all things, just as fire permeates wood. And so he appears to be of many varieties, though he is the absolute one without a second. Then the last one I'll share with you is 33. The Super Soul enters into the bodies of the created beings who are influenced by the modes of material nature and causes them to enjoy the effects of these modes by the subtle mind. There are 8,400,000 species of living beings, beginning from the highest intellectual being, Brahma, down to the insignificant ant. And when I was reading this and thinking about it, when I was younger, I don't know if anyone remembers this or knows about it, but there used to be a program about this particular French oceanographer or diver. He would explore the bottom of the ocean. His name was Jacques Cousteau. And he would go down all the way to the bottom of the ocean. It was dark under there, so he had to take lights with him. And I was so amazed by some of the living entities down there. It's something you know, like, not ordinary creatures, you know. And then you wonder, like, what kind of karma, you know, that particular living entity has to be down under the water, you know, like that. And there was another thing I was thinking about. Oh, I was listening to a lecture by Srila Prabhupada, and he talks about birds who fly from planet to planet, and birds who can pick up elephants, which is beyond my imagination, but Prabhupada said it so. And what else did he described? I forget, but there are so many things we don't know about in terms of the living entities. I think in the of aquatics, there's 900,000 aquatics and 400,000 human beings. I'm not sure about the rest of the creations, how many there are. Well, I'll finish reading this. Okay, I was saying from the highest intellectual being, Brahma, down to the insignificant ant. And, I have to talk about the ants, because I think there's a particular season when the ants come. And there were so many ants in my flat, so many ants, and you don't want to kill them, And if you observe the ant, you can see that he's got his little piece of, he just took one little piece of something, because it's a grain or it's white, you can see him, carrying it, to wherever he wants to take it, trying to get something to eat. So, you become very observant of all the living entities. And I remember the story, Srila Prabhupada said, one time, one of the devotees, one of the Matatis, said, Prabhupada, there was a slug on the ground or on the floor or something, and Prabhupada told her to chant to the poor thing, to chant to it. And so now if I see a spider or, there's so many geckos here, if you can get close enough, you could just chant to them to give them a chance to hear, the Maha Mantra, because they're in that body. I don't know what body they'll get next time, but at least we can share with them the Maha Mantra. Chant to them, chant to all the animals, the living beings that are in your flat. They're here, they're there, so you can share the holy name with them. And all of them are enjoying the material world according to the desires of the subtle mind and gross material body. The gross material body is based on the conditions of the subtle mind, and the senses are created according to the desire of the living being. Okay. So another point that I wanted to talk about a little bit is what Prabhupada is saying. Perfect knowledge is knowing the constitution of the body, the constitution of the individual soul, and this was thoroughly explained to Arjuna in chapter 2, and the constitution of the super soul. And these are known as Gyan in the Vedic literature. And this is Krishna's opinion. I also wanted to point out too that in this chapter, Srila Prabhupada is directly quoting Krishna. He says, quote, so this is coming directly from Krishna's lotus mouth. I am also the knower, but I'm not the individual knower of the body. I'm also the super knower. I'm present in everybody as the Paramatma, or super soul. Krishna is telling us. And then the Lord says, I'm the knower of the field of activities in every individual body. And so to understand both the soul and the super soul as one, yet distinct, is knowledge. So it's like we all maintain our individuality. One example I heard recently was, and we've all heard, is that the green bird enters into a green tree, but that doesn't make him submerge into the tree. He still remains an individual. And the thing about Gyan knowledge is, I think Arjuna says, it's such a waste of time because it takes a very long time to come to the understanding about bhakti. And there's a danger of thinking, I'm God, we're all God. I know we've heard people say that. We're all God, we're all one. And so that's impersonalism. And just recently I heard one devotee explain the story about Srila Prabhupada told someone, like, okay, so if we're all one, why don't you wear a cotton ball and not the cotton shirt? If we're all one, just put the ball on your body and don't wear the shirt. If we're all one. So, in conclusion, I'd like to say that, throughout the whole purport, Prabhupada is making it clear that Krishna is superior and we are small, finite.
Subordinate.
Thank you, yes. Subordinate. We are subordinate. Krishna is Vibhu and we are Anu. Small, small. The size of the hair, the tip of a hair. And we have the same quality, but not quantity. And it's been explained by Srila Prabhupada, it's like taking a drop of water out of the ocean. We're the drop of water, and he's the ocean. So in the ocean, there are so many qualities, and we have those in a minute form. But Krishna has them in the endless. Yes, his qualities are endless. Ananta Shesh is still talking about the qualities of Krishna. So by that we should understand what is our position. But we're all here to try to understand Krishna, talk about Krishna, chant Krishna, and go back home, back to Godhead. Thank you all for listening. Any questions, any additions, any comments, any criticisms, they're all welcomed. Hare Krishna. You get the mic, please. Is it there? Hare Krishna.
Yes, we were speaking that we are all part and parcel of Krishna.
Yes.
And Krishna is within everyone, from Lord Brahma to insignificant age. So that means that we are all relatively one. We are all relatively one.
You mean like just one glob or individual ones?
Just like we are relatives, just like you have your father, mother,
Yes,
brothers,
yes,
sisters.
yes.
So similarly, we are also all brothers and
We're all
sisters.
family, yes.
We are also
We're all family. All of everyone's devotees. Everybody in the whole world, except most of them don't know. They don't know.
Why we sometimes discriminate that he is my enemy, he is my friend, this discrimination, how it comes?
It's just by conditioning, because we understand through the Vedic literature that devotees have no friends and no enemies. But we just have to get to that stage. It's just our material conditioning that we think this person's our enemy. And we come out of the world and you can see how the world is situated. Everybody's fighting. It's like when I was coming, I have to go out the country because of my visa. I have to go every 6 months. So, when you go, you have to show your passport. And I showed the person my passport, and he was telling me, "Oh, I think you've overstayed your time in India." And I told him, I said, "Are you sure? I think you should check it." I was getting a little nervous because I know it was close But he kept insisting, and then I was just waiting for Krishna, because usually when a situation like that comes up, I just wait and see what Krishna's going to do. I don't say anything. I said, okay, Krishna, you can handle this one. So then he looked again and he counted, and then he said, oh no, you only have you have 7 days left before you were overstaying. I was like, thank you. But you see that you know, you go through so much trouble just to go from country to country. You know, and, you know, people are, you know, not only that, you know, you have racial issues, you have feminine issues, you know, male, female issues. You have so many issues in the material world. That's the material world. That's how it is. You know, but devotees, we're learning not to consider one enemy and one friend. We have to see everyone equally. And if we are not, we can strive to be like that.
You say that we have to see, but are we seeing?
Some are seeing, maybe not everyone. I think some are seeing and some are not. Everyone's at a different stage. You can't expect in a huge community like this that everyone's going to be on the same level of consciousness. But I think at the last class we talked about they're in the shower. If they're in the shower, you cannot criticize. You just have to be compassionate. And you know about the 3 levels of, you know, how you know, it's in the, I think, the Nectar of Instruction, about how to, you know, juniors, seniors, etc., how you relate. So we have to be tolerant. I asked my Shiksha Guru, since I'm in Vrindavan, I asked him, well, what is the one instruction you would give me being here? He said, tolerate. That's all he said, one word, tolerate. And that doesn't mean, oh, I'm gonna tolerate you. You know, like, I'm gonna tolerate you. I'm so big, I'm gonna tolerate you. Not like that. You know? Oh, I'm tolerating. No. Sincerely in the heart, you just say, okay. And also you think whatever is happening to me is only a little bit of what I should be getting. Considering I've been wandering around this material universe for millions of lifetimes. Who knows what I did? I don't even want to think about what I did in this life, what to speak of other lives. So, is that okay?
Thank you, Mother.
You're welcome. Yes?
Thank you, Mother.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
I have a deep question regarding this. Krishna acting as a very good teacher to Arjuna. After 12th chapter, 11th chapter, Virat Puri he showed this Virat Puri realized that he is a god. Arjuna realized that he is a Krishna is a god. Then why he extended this 12th chapter to 18th chapter? It should be, Gita should be finished in 12th chapter.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding what you mean. Can you?
He is saying that Krishna has shown
The Virat Rupa. Yes.
And Arjuna had understood that Krishna is the Supreme God. Then why Gita is further?
Extended to 12th chapter to 18th chapter. He was acting as a very good teacher to the Arjuna. Why he extended 6th chapter?
Okay, how the... Because we have to have, there's more information, right, to have in the Gita besides just, I mean, even some people who read the Gita now still, it's not for Arjuna, it's for us. Arjuna is a pure devotee and a friend of Krishna. You know, so he doesn't need that information. We need it. We need that information, and we need, you know, to know in depth everything about, just like this chapter talks about, you know, the you know, super soul and the jiva soul. From chapter 1, the first 6 chapters talk about karma yoga, The middle chapters talk about bhakti, how to get bhakti, because that's the ending. And then the next 6 chapters, beginning with this chapter, are about jnana, about knowledge. And you have all different types of living entities who are reading the Gita. So he's giving all of this information, because even if the universal form is only temporary, it's material. That Virat Rupa is material. But we have to understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's the controller. So some people don't accept that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes we can hear something, we can go out of the room, and still we are not, haven't absorbed what was the information that we had, We've been here so long, so we have to keep hearing. We have to keep hearing. We have to keep hearing. Does anyone want to add to that? Please.
Thank you. The other thing is, actually, this chapter starts in response to Arjuna's questions.
Oh, yes.
So Arjuna starts this extra conversation. One thing is to understand God. He was there in the 11th chapter. But then we have to understand how we are related to God and how we should act in that relationship. So Karma Yoga was described in the first 6 chapters, but we haven't quite got it yet.
No.
We need a little more understanding to act. Because particularly in this 13th chapter, it's described how we move from one body to another, how we get trapped in these bodies, and then having understood that, we can understand how to act to get free from that entrapment. Simply knowing Krishna is God actually doesn't tell us what to do about it.
Thank you. Is that satisfactory? It's okay. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
There's something in this purport that I have not understood, and that's the
Which one?
analogy of the painter, the painting, and the easel in relation to Prakriti, Purusha, and Ishvara. In the purport,
Yes.
Prabhupada gives the example. He says one should not confuse the painter, the painting, and the easel.
Okay, I'm thinking, when I read this, I was thinking that, I've used paints and paintings and the easel when I was painting. And we can discuss this. The painter, page 567 in mine, is Krishna. He's the one who's painting everything how he wants.
Yeah, my assumption is the painter is Krishna.
And the painting is us?
Well, that's what I think, because the easel is
Because the easel is the structure.
The support.
And that's material nature, the structure.
But I never quite understood how it relates to, we can understand from the painter, the painting, and the easel, what the paintings, how we are the painting, that's what I don't understand.
Well, the painting, the different mixtures of colors, all the different desires, the different mixes. It's just like you have the primary color, whatever the primary colors are, you can get so many different shades. So the painting has so many different nuances. If you look at a painting, different nuances, different colors, different mixes, that's us. We have all of these different subtle and not so subtle colorings. So what I could understand.
But we're relying on Krishna to paint us the right way. So we come out of it.
Yes, just paint us over again, okay? Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all for coming to the Gita class.